Here he goes again. That's huge. That's on the roof.
Welcome to Dean at Stumps, the cricket encyclopedia.
The Sri Lankans are stunned. The Zimbabweans are jubilant. Look what that means to them. The first ever series victory against Sri Lanka.
Hello and welcome to the Dean at Stumps podcast. My name is Dean du Plessis, and it is great to be with you as we continue to watch some what is now becoming a very good World Cup cricket action. Well, today on the podcast, this is the man who we'll be talking to. He has a career best and in fact still holds the best figures in a one-day international by a Zimbabwean of 6 for 19 against England way back in 2000 in a triangular series in Cape Town. He also was the very first black player to represent Zimbabwe at Test cricket against Pakistan in February 1995. By the way, that was a Test match which Zimbabwe won. And he also was very brave, bold and courageous when in 2003 he, alongside Andy Flower, decided to wear a black armband in protest for the death of democracy in Zimbabwe, as they called it. I am, of course, talking about Henry Olonga, and I was very fortunate enough to catch up with Henry a couple of days ago, and this is his story.
I don't know why you've been playing cricket, but it's a great thing to play cricket. I know they love it in Australia, so I get that. But wow, you're a singer.
I was actually a rubbish cricket player, just to say.
Well, the good news is you're not a rubbish singer. You're an amazing singer. That was beyond.
I don't think you can be a rubbish cricket player and play for your country.
No, if you play for Zimbabwe, you can. No, trust me.
No, you got that. You're underplaying this thing.
Now, it's amazing, Henry, because normally as an international player or even a first-class player who's been in the game for a long time, thoughts after cricket normally turn towards either coaching or commentating or going into the business world. But it's quite remarkable that you've gone completely different and decided, when I'm finished with this game, which sadly was a bit premature, but when I'm done here, I'm actually going to be singing. It must be wonderful that you are able to follow your dream. And I guess what took you so long before you auditioned for The Voice? Because the show that you're on is aptly named because you really are The Voice.
You're very kind. Well, Dean, as you rightly pointed out, there are many paths you can take when cricket ends, and I tried some of them. And, they just didn't fly with me. So I did try cricket commentary. And, of course, cricket commentary is one of those things that's quite hard to break into.
Oh, yes.
Because there's so many good retired cricketers who are good at speaking and had been doing it for a while. And, you're either going to unseat someone or wait for them to die. And or you're going to join another television channel that kind of comes up on the scene. So there was really, there were really limited options for me. Once I decided I didn't want to carry on playing cricket, which came early on in the piece, I was involved with a club called the Lushing's World 11 for 9 or so years, from 2003 when I retired all the way through to about 2012. But in any case, having been with them for that long, I kind of decided that playing cricket wasn't for me, and that, in essence, commentary wasn't for me. But singing had always been in the background, mate. I'd always been singing from high school all the way up. Even through my cricket career, I was singing at various functions, and whenever I'd come home to Zimbabwe, I would get the opportunity to sing when I was invited to various places. So singing never ended. It never stopped for me. And, I've actually been quite active in that space for now close on 20-something years. I started singing in 1990 was my first principal part in a play. So it's actually going on 29 years almost now. And so, it was something like, gosh, what was I? I was in Form 2 when I got that part. So that laid the foundation. And actually, before going into Test cricket, I got an invitation or an offer of a scholarship to go to London and study music and drama at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. And so, that was a big opportunity. But what happened was cricket came along, and I ended up going into the world of cricket and never looking back for 8 or so seasons that I was playing cricket. And then when I went to England and got there, I ended up obviously having more freedom to do what I wanted, and then music started to come more and more to the fore. I released an album in 2006 called Aurelia, which was effectively an album saying, here's me revealing to the world that I'm now in a different space. You can still find it online. It's on iTunes and in various places, various streaming services like Spotify. I did release music. It just wasn't. It wasn't well received by the public, who either didn't know it was there or I didn't have the money to promote it, etc.
Now flies the flag, my nation's glory. I live with pride inside my heart. I'll make a stand to build this nation. This my land, my Zimbabwe. Now flies the flag, our nation's glory. We live with pride inside our hearts as we all stand to build our nation. This our land, our Zimbabwe.
The Voice and Pop Idol and X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and all those kinds of shows, a lot of people came up to me and said, hey, have you thought of doing this? Have you, why don't you go and sing on this show or that show? And I kept saying to people, it's not really my scene. I don't really want to be on this reality TV bandwagon. When The Voice approached, having said that, The Voice is one show I have had more respect for than any of the others, because The Voice doesn't try to embarrass you in a sense. They other shows that love people to play the fool, and The Voice isn't really like that. So, ultimately, I decided to give it a go because I'm not getting any younger. I auditioned. You got to go through various qualification processes,
right,
to ensure that you get through each stage. There are many stages. They have to get the numbers down from 5,000 people to 100 for the blinds.
Goodness me.
At the end of the day, mate, I'm 42, turning 43 this year, and these sorts of things come, and if you let them pass you by, you'll end up 60 thinking, when I was 42, why didn't I do that? So life is fleeting. You get opportunities to do things maybe once or twice. If you turn them down, you might miss your moment. So hence the reason why I ended up going with it.
Well, we're very happy to hear that you're doing it, H. Finally, your talent has been discovered and now will be nurtured by the correct coaches as well. And I believe that you're never too old to do anything. There's always the right time and the right place for it to happen, and this is clearly yours. When you did the blind auditions, you said that it is a pretty, it's not such a big deal playing cricket for Zimbabwe because they weren't necessarily the greatest team, which if people misconstrued that could certainly have a few hackles rising and so on. Do you perhaps just want to clarify what you meant when you spoke about that?
Okay, so the first thing I said was I was actually a rubbish cricketer. That was referring to myself. I think what's happened is some people have conflated that and thought I said Zimbabwe cricketers were rubbish. So that's the first clarification. I've been on Twitter and Facebook, and people are misquoting and misrepresenting what I said. But just for a start, now when someone says that here in the West, people don't freak out and get all sensitive about it because they understand one of two things. Either what he's saying is true, and he totally believes it, or what he's saying might be hyperbolic. Now, hyperbolic language is an exaggeration in which you're using tongue-in-cheek. Tongue-in-cheek is kind of a certain irony. So if you hear someone who's played Test cricket, who's got, I don't know if I still have the best one-day international fitness for Zimbabwe, but I certainly...
6 for 19 against England, I would say so. Yep.
6 for 19 against England. I played in a Test series in which I was man of the match in Pakistan. We won that series on the strength of the first Test, which we won. And the rest of the series was fogged off in 98.
Yes.
We got through the sixth stage of the World Cup. So the statement couldn't possibly be true because I wasn't actually that rubbish. I was inconsistent, but I was good enough to play against good players and have success against them. I wasn't the best player by any stretch, and I wasn't a first choice pick either. But even I understand that I wasn't rubbish. So if I'm saying it, it must have been a joke, right? I mean, it must have been, unless I truly believe that. I mean, if I'd been born and bred and raised in any of the other countries, I don't think I would have played Test cricket. I don't think I was good enough. And we also have a small pool of players. When I was playing, we had about 20 or so players that you could classify as world class. I mean, you go to any other country, there are thousands. So I was kind of making a play of that. I wasn't actually saying that we're useless. And I wasn't certainly commenting on our current state of play. And the truth is we're not at this World Cup. And I wasn't having a go at that. All the banter there was about myself. It wasn't, get everyone else. When I said that, I think most people in this country got it. I haven't heard any kind of uproar from any other people group apart from Zimbabweans who are just, up in arms saying it was insensitive and I insulted the team. Come on, I've got to grow a sense of humor. I've got a better sense of humor than a lot of people who've had an easy life. It's really ironic. I can laugh about these things and I can smile and joke about it. But I've got a nation in uproar because I said I'm a rubbish cricketer and that it's easy to get into the cricket side.
Okay, H, so let's actually talk about the game and put all of that firmly behind us. The 1999 World Cup was in England. It was an incredibly special World Cup for Zimbabwe because they did remarkably well, and now 20 years later, it's back in England again. What are your fondest memories of that World Cup in 1999? There must have been quite a few, I would imagine.
Well, I think the fondest memory is all those wickets that I took in the match against India at Grace Road. India were cruising. They needed something like 8 runs in the last over. Well, in fact, no, in 2 overs. And Alistair Campbell walks up to me and gave me the ball. And I'd had a bad first spell. The Indian crowd were just abusing all the time, constantly from the boundary. In fact, they were saying, bring back Olonga and the game will go on no longer. It was just really, really launching into me. And so when Alistair Campbell came and gave me the ball, Alistair said to me, this is what you're paid to do. This is your moment. Stuart Carlisle said something similar, and I took 3 wickets in 4 balls.
Olonga bowling to the last man, Prasad. Big appeal for Abu. He's out! He's out, and Zimbabwe have won by 3 runs. Umpire Peter Willey raises a finger. Prasad out first ball with 1 over to go. Henry Olonga has taken 3 wickets in this over. A big gamble by Alistair Campbell because Olonga had bowled like a drain earlier. A lot of wides. He looked overawed by the occasion. He's coming here now. He's taken 3 wickets in this over. Sensational win for Zimbabwe.
A tremendous victory, tremendous memories. And then we beat South Africa, which was an extraordinary achievement for us because they were up there in the top 2 favourites. We beat them at Chelmsford in Essex, and it was a tremendous team effort. I contributed with a wicket at the end, Alan Donald, and I also took a catch to dismiss Daryl Cullinan.
Yes, very
Neil
good.
Johnson played a starring role. Yeah. He took 3 wickets, I think, and he also scored a decent number of runs, something like 70 or 80.
Yeah.
And we just kept taking wickets. If I remember, a beautiful diving catch by Andy Whittle to dismiss Steve Elworthy. John T. Rhodes, there was a run out between John T. Rhodes and Herschel Gibbs. And then Jonty was at LBW, the Heat Streak. Because some of these memories may be false memories, but I think that's what kind of the way things went.
It's all correct.
We just keep getting wickets. And of course, Zulu, Lon Klusner came in at the end, and he could still have won it for them. But then, we got them to switch ends, and I bowled to Donald, and we got our final wicket, and they never got close to our total, if I'm not mistaken. But it was just a great day. And my most endearing memory, mate. It's the proudest moment I've been as a Zimbabwean person. Was standing on the balcony of the change rooms at Chelmsford, and the whole crowd. There was a sea of red. All the Zimbabwean fans came down to ground level, came up. All the way up to the change room, not on top on our level, but they were singing up to us, and they were singing Zim Zim Zimbabwe, and they were singing Super Sticks. Because I think after that match, we effectively had qualified, and it was such a special moment. The kind of stuff that sort of goes to the grave with you, and explaining how special that was for a little minnow team like us who didn't have superstars. When I say superstars, I'm not disparaging Johnson, Streak, Flower, etc. Or Murray Goodwin. I'm just saying, we were a bits and pieces team that didn't always have a match winner that could just knock us all the way through to a victory. We all had to chip in. Every single person had to do their little bit, and we were able to upset giants. We didn't have a Shane Warne who could just bowl through a side, or Glenn McGrath, or a Mark Waugh or Steve Waugh who could score hundreds for breakfast. We were a side that really needed to put it all together on the day. And that's definitely my best memory, second to India. And of course, just the way we conducted ourselves throughout the whole tournament. Unfortunately for us, had we scored another 30 runs at any point up into the Super Sixes, we might have gone through to the next round. I don't know if it was the quarters.
I think it was the quarterfinals, yes.
We were that close. But I remember landing back in Zimbabwe a hero, and just the whole nation embracing us, loving us. How things have changed. Hey?
And it seemed to...
I can't go anywhere on the internet without being called all sorts of names.
Yeah, most of them I'm hoping will be very, very good names. But it also seemed just to improve your bowling dramatically, because then in the series against Sri Lanka, which followed in Zimbabwe, Streak had a horrific knee injury. So you had to carry the bowling attack through 3 test matches and 5 one-day internationals. And you also bowled very well against South Africa when Zimbabwe beat them for a second time in Durban in 2000. And suddenly it all came together. You were very good with the new ball, getting the ball to move away from the opening batsman, but then more importantly, at the back end of the innings, your Yorkers were spot on, reverse swinging Yorkers at real and genuine pace. Would you put that down to the way that you came along in leaps and bounds in that 99 World Cup?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Dean, I've always been a bit of a weird person in that I really need to click with you as a person if you're my coach. And I had this one coach, and I must mention this man because he's been a very special man in my life. But I had a coach called Atherton Squire. He was my athletics coach. I clicked with him, and I was breaking all sorts of records at school. He left the school, and I never clicked with anyone else, and I was never as good as in athletics. So generally, whenever I've been mentored well or coached well, I've done exceptionally well. The guy I did really well with was Casey. Kevin Curran. So I was really sad when I heard that he passed away, but I really got on with KC. He really just made it simple for me. In any case, you're very kind in suggesting that I carried the attack for a few seasons, or one season or two, whenever he had his knee injury. But that would be a very high praise, and I don't accept it. I just think that I was maturing as a bowler by then. I was trying to figure out my own game, and it does take a while for any bowler to figure out who they are.
Yes.
And I had a couple of good series here and there, and the saddest thing for me, of course, is after the black armband protest, or during that World Cup of 2003. I was actually bowling pretty well. I was actually at the top, bowling as well as I bowled in '98. Which is when I, had a couple of good series. I obviously did well in Zimbabwe against India, taking 5 in the first innings. I went to Sharjah, did well there in the second match that we played India, and then Sachin went ballistic in the final. Yeah. But that, and then we went to Pakistan after that, and that's when we won that series. So I had 3 tournaments in which I was a match winner, a genuine match winner. And I felt I had that back in 2003. But of course, as everyone knows in the whole world knows now, politics took over. I did this protest, and of course, changed the course of my life. I don't have any regrets. I'm just saying, it's just really sad that they left me out of the side for most of that tournament when I was at my best.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think anybody really knew why you weren't playing in the 2003 World Cup. You eventually came back to play against Kenya and Bloemfontein and a few of the Super 6 games. But then your life changed forever.
We were out by then.
Yeah, we were done and dusted.
Yeah, I only played against Kenya. And that was so I played the first match against Namibia, did the protest, and that was my last match until Kenya. And then off I went into exile. So here we are, 15 or so years later.
Absolutely. I'm not going to really dwell too much on the exile side of things, but I want to talk about resilience, which is something that you've always seemed to have. You may say that perhaps you didn't, but back in 1995, you couldn't have got off to the... Well, it was a real bittersweet symphony, wasn't it? Your first test match for the country, you were at that time the fastest bowler in Zimbabwe at the age of 18 years old. Zimbabwe batted first, made 544 for 4 declared. They give you the ball. Andy Flower gives you the ball and says basically, H, you got the keys to the city. Run in and bowl quickly and take wickets. And with your third delivery in Test cricket, that's exactly what you did. You got the wicket aside, Anwar caught behind, and everything was going nicely. Yep. And the next thing, you get called for, because of the bent elbow, which would have meant that you were throwing. So suddenly, in a space of 24 hours, you have incredible emotions from, I would imagine, being on top of the world to feeling, what on earth am I actually even doing here? How did you able to overcome all of that?
Well, I think the first thing you realize is you're still alive. And while you're still alive, you're still breathing, you can change your future. And I think that's the start of resilience, is an understanding that whatever's happened to you couldn't possibly be the worst thing that could happen to you, because the worst thing that could happen is you die and you're out of here and you don't have a chance to rewrite the story. And so I knew that while I still had breath and while I still had the option, and, the Cricket Authority still believed in me. So back in the day, Zimbabwe Cricket still believed in me. The ICC did as well. So they sent me to 3 academies over 3 years. I went to India in 95, 96 I came here to Australia, and 97 I went to the Bascom Cricket Academy in Johannesburg, South Africa. So I worked with great people in the sport, people with technical excellence, who were able to help me understand why I was going wrong and how to fix it. I just don't think we had the excellence in Zimbabwe, and that's not it's not a disgrace for Zimbabwe. We just weren't there. We didn't have a really well-established cricket fraternity that had biomechanists, specialists, that sort of thing, people who know the movement of the body and how things are going wrong, etc. But they had them in all these other countries. Yeah. And I worked with Dennis Lilly and Bill Garner and Rod Marsh and various people all over the world, and Clive Rice in South Africa. And they got me back. And look, there were hard times. It was very embarrassing back then when you got called for throwing as well. Nowadays, they even have a different name for it. They call it a suspect action.
Yeah, that's right.
But back then they called you a chukka. And in essence, it was the Pakistan players who put pressure on Ian Robinson, and many people remember Ian, the umpire. Look, would he have called me if they hadn't put pressure? I don't know. But in essence, I'm not one of those people who will have power grapes about being called, because I think when I saw the replay, I saw that there was a problem. I saw the replay with Dennis Lilly, and I had a bit of a bend. I don't know if it was illegal according to today's standards. Today they give you, what do they give you? 15 degrees, something like that? I'm not sure what they give you. So there was kind of a challenge, an internal challenge, that I wanted to finish well, even if I started badly. That's my life's motto. That's how I live, because we're all going to have clangers, mate. We're all going to fail. We're all going to stuff up. in life. I don't know, unless you're the perfect person most perfect person who's ever lived, who doesn't mess up. We're all going to have moments where we go, gosh, I got that wrong, But I want to be brave in my life. I want to go put myself out there and try things that others are afraid to do, and live a life that is a life of substance, where although I'm taking the risky path, I'm taking the path that's the most fulfilling, because at the end of the day, I'm choosing a path that isn't necessarily easy, but is the right path because it makes a difference. And so that's what the Black Armband was all about. It was about trying to make a difference. I can be misunderstood for it. That was part of the risk. But I'll stand by it. Going on The Voice, I might stuff up here, but heck, it's a much nicer life. It's a life lived worthy of risk than one that is risk averse. When we sit on our couches and we eat our popcorn and criticize all these players and criticize people like me, that's the easy route. It's easy to be a critic, but to actually get out there, get involved in the game, whatever that game is, whether it's music or sport or politics or whatever tickles your fancy, and get your hands dirty and fall and fail and stuff up and then get up as the song goes, dust yourself off and start all over again.
Yeah.
I think that's where we find our passions, and that's where we feel alive. I know it sounds weird to the majority of people after my comments, but I'm a very proud Zimbabwean. I'm not Zimbabwean anymore technically because I've got British citizenship, but that's not my choice. And I wrote in my book the many things I've done. I've sort of played for my country. I had operations to keep playing, just like Heath. There are many of us who had to keep playing through a lot of pain. We bled for the country, literally broken bones and fingers. We traveled, we left family behind to go and represent our country. Yes, people say it's an honor to play for your country, but it's tough. We getting hammered in various countries like India, getting beaten by sides that are better than you. I wrote the song Our Zimbabwe 2001. I did this political protest in which I felt I was standing up for the disenfranchised little man in Zimbabwe, trying to be an ambassador for the country that raised me. And I'm going to keep doing that, come what may, even though there may be opposition.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Henry Olonga talking about The Voice, talking about decisions that he made, talking about his playing career. And just a reminder that he was the first black cricketer to represent his country in 1995 at the age of 18 years old as well. Don't forget, very young to suddenly be taking the new ball and to be running in and bowling to the likes of Syed Anwar and Amir Sohail. And he got the wicket of Syed Anwar. And many things happened to Henry. Some of them were incredibly good, some of them not so good, and it was a real pleasure to be able to talk to him and to hear his story and for him to share many of things that happened with him, some of which we knew, some of which we didn't know. You've been listening to the D-Nut Stumps podcast. Don't forget you can subscribe on YouTube. All you do is go onto YouTube and do a search and subscribe, and you'll hear some fantastic interviews with the likes of Adam Gilchrist, Andy Flower, Alan Donald, but to name a few. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be back again pretty soon. But until then, enjoy all the World Cup cricket action. Goodbye.